Well, the mass murderer is now in court. There's a lot of talk about his psychology. I find that less interesting. Much more interesting are the deep motivations, how he's thinking politically. And in order to get into that, you can start with the date he chose. That was 22nd of July. 22nd of July, 1099, the Knights Templars liberated Jerusalem. For the Christians, later on for the Jews, the 22nd of July, 1946, King David Hotel was exploded by what was at that time Jewish terrorists. Some of them later became prime ministers of Israel. So the day is not quite by chance. He has deep, deep anchorings in Judeo-Christian mythology and the myths of the Knight Templars. So the question is, are there many people like that? Well, he's quite well read, you see. He's an intelligent man, autodidact, very hardworking, and the nonsense that he was paranoid schizophrenic, they got rid of, and they have declared him normal. He is politically, I would say, as misguided as anybody can be, but not much more than the Norwegian government killing Afghans in Afghanistan. I do not get very popular in Norway for drawing that parallel, and I stand by it. So we have a case now where the court has to maneuver in such a way that the similarity between Breivik's killings and what the Norwegian government does as a part of a US-led coalition does not come up. It's quite a difficult maneuvering. They will probably focus on his psychology, whether he breaks into tears, whether he shows signs of remorse. Well, I haven't seen so much remorse from the Norwegian government either for the killing in Afghanistan. And they have human feelings too. They may be as concerned about the people they have lost as Norwegians are, and as I would have been had my granddaughter been among the victims. The Taliban tell me that this is a very Muslim country. We hate secularism. We hate people coming trying to win hearts and minds by digging wells and giving us water not blessed by Allah. I think of the 57 members of the Organization for Islamic Cooperation, Afghanistan may be among the countries with the highest percentage of Muslims. To win heart and minds through secular activity is a non-starter and has been from the beginning. Now, in addition, they hate Kabul as an overbloated kind of capital carrying the illusion of a unitary state. It isn't. And I think that they would prefer to see a very small center of the country and very high level of autonomy. In addition, they are sick and tired of being invaded. Started with Alexander the Great. You know, this is the place where he became Alexander the Small. And they were invaded by the Mongols, 3 times by the Britons, 1 time by the Soviet, and now by the US-led coalition, as you said, NATO forces. So for them, this is also a war to fight being invaded, the war to end wars. And finally, very important, the Duran line drawn by the British Empire through Pashtun territory, 40 million Pashtuns, maybe the highest minority in the world, which doesn't have a state. They don't recognize that line at all. They're not foreigners crossing from Afghanistan into Pakistan. That's some kind of Washington illusion. They're in their own territory, Pashtun territory. Now, how do you solve that one? Pakistan is not going to give territory to Afghanistan. Afghanistan is not going to give it to Pakistan. You solve it by having a Central Asian community, making the border irrelevant. So, Central Asian community, a deeply federated Afghanistan, neutral, non-aligned, with security forces cooperating from OIC and the United Nations Security Council. I guess that's the future. Now, I'm sitting here in the US, a country I love, and it's so sad to see that the US sees only enemies everywhere, instead of putting its wonderful minds to solving the conflict. They could sponsor a conference without running it to explore a Central Asian community, non-alignment and things of that kind. And they could cooperate with Turkey, Iran, Pakistan, Russia, China in doing so. Somewhat less India because there the concerns about Kashmir come up. Why does the US have to see enemies everywhere and always react violently. So the solution is at hand. It's not at all complicated. And these people, Taliban, they don't want to kill people in the US. They want to preserve their own autonomy and be themselves. And they're struggling for that.